We all have such busy lives, we're rushing around, there's so little time to do anything, isn't there? And I hear it so often, I only had 15 minutes and so I didn't even sit at the harp. I was too busy, I wasn't able to practice this week at all. I'll practice when I have more time. A focused 15-minute or even 10-minute practice can often reap way more benefits for you in your playing than 45 minutes or an hour where you're kind of floating from one thing to the next and you're not really focusing. You can feel a bit panicked. It's not helpful for you to bring panic to your practice. Welcome to the How to Harp podcast, where your harp, your journey are always front and centre. I'm Heather Downey, harpist and founder of How to Harp, your online space for expert guidance and endless inspiration. Each week, we are here to empower, inspire and encourage you, whether you're just beginning or many years into your harp adventure. From chats with world-class professionals to real stories from everyday harpists to practical tips you can use right away. This podcast is all about helping you feel happy, confident and fulfilled with your harp. Hello everyone, welcome back to the How to Harp podcast. You have little old me for this episode. I'm here to give you a harp tip I hope you can take straight to the practice room to help you on your harping journey. Now, I'm talking about something which I feel like we can all relate to this week, and that is the 15-minute practice session. We all have such busy lives, we're rushing around, there's so little time to do anything, isn't there? And I hear it so often, I only had 15 minutes and so I didn't even sit at the harp. I was too busy, I wasn't able to practice this week at all. I'll practice when I have more time. This is something that not just all harpists struggle with, but all musicians, all learners struggle with. This idea that if you don't have a long stretch to practice in, there's no time to practice, but also just finding time to practice. Well, in truth, a focused 15-minute or even 10-minute practice can often reap way more benefits for you in your playing than 45 minutes or an hour where you're kind of floating from one thing to the next and you're not really focusing and you're not really moving yourself forward. In fact, often having only 15 minutes to practice can be such a benefit because as soon as you only have 15 minutes at the harp, you're going to make every minute really count. So I'm going to give you a structured approach for a good 15-minute practice, which you can take away and use. Of course, this is going to include a warm-up. Do not think that because you only have 15 minutes, you're going to skip the warm-up. The warm-up is still super, super important. So let's jump in. The structure, how to practice if you only have 15 minutes to sit down at the harp. Remember, a shorter practice is not a lesser practice. Short, focused practice is what we're going for. So, I've got a little structure for us. Of course, we're going to have our warm-up. And I have spoken about my well-rounded warm-up routine before. So we're going to start with that well-rounded warm-up routine. We're going to have 1 minute of settle and centre. And if it helps, probably would help me if I really did only have 15 minutes, then put on a timer. So 1 minute of settle and centre, just a little bit of deep breathing work. In and out, relax. A minute can feel really quite long when you're doing some nice deep breathing. And maybe some gentle wrist circles and some shoulder rolls as you're doing that breathing, just to bring you down. Because the other thing about having only 15 minutes to practice is you can feel a bit panicked. It's not helpful for you to bring panic to your practice. We definitely want to stay calm and centered. This is not wasted time. This is what helps the next 14 minutes feel controlled and useful and focused and not rushed and stressed and tense. So don't skip the settle and center. Take a minute, center yourself. Any negative thoughts? That's not for now. Don't need that just now. Then we're going to have our kind of actual warm up. We're going to have 2 minutes close work and 2 minutes stretch work. And again, it's amazing how many exercises you can get done in 2 minutes. In the 2 minutes close work, you could do some individual fingers. You could do a scale or two. That's perfect. In 2 minutes stretch work, you could do some triads and inversions, and you could do some arpeggios and inversions. So you've got plenty of time in 2 minutes to work through 2 or 3 individual close work exercises and 2 or 3 stretch work exercises. Just to remind you, your close work exercises are small, focused finger work where your fingers are working close together. Could be a scale, individual fingers. In my well-rounded warm-up book, I've got 2 finger placing, 3 finger placing, 4 finger placing shapes, etc., etc. Working on finger independence, maybe even a tricky fingering pattern from the piece of repertoire you're working on. All the better if you can incorporate stuff from your repertoire into that warm-up time. Your stretch work, 2 minutes on stretch work, you're working on the bigger shapes, you're stretching your fingers. Arpeggios and inversions are so good for this because the stretch moves between the fingers when you play those. But you're thinking triads, arpeggios, 1/5/8s, 1/5/10s, chord patterns, Alberti bass, something from your repertoire would be great. And of course, if you can choose some shapes that are in your repertoire, it's going to help your hands prepare for that repertoire that's coming. So we've now used 5 minutes. We've used a third of our 15-minute practice. 1 minute on settle and center, 2 minutes on close work, 2 minutes on stretch work. And then we are not going to leave out that creative work. So we are going to take a little minute to just have a tiny noodle around your harp. I've got a tune which I wrote called The Art of Noodling. That kind of thing is perfect. Just a little noodle. It doesn't have to be one of those creative practice prompts, or it could be a piece that you really enjoy playing, a short piece that just, gets you in the mood for practice. Just 1 minute on that creative work to just, get you a bit free and get you a bit flowing with your music. And then you have 6 minutes left. Do you have 6 minutes left? No, you've got longer than that. Did well there, didn't I? So we've used 6 minutes. We've used 5 minutes, 1 minute on settle and center, 2 minutes on close work, 2 minutes on stretch work, 1 minute on creative work, something that helps get your hands flowing in some way. So what have we got left? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 minutes left. 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 minutes left for our repertoire. Now, you might be working on 2, 3 bits of repertoire. You don't have to work on all of the repertoire you're working on in those 9 minutes. You could, if you were working on 3 bits of repertoire, you could split up 3 minutes on each. But it's actually better for you to take maybe a little section. So maybe, there's a tricky section in one of your pieces and you're going to work on that for 3 minutes, say. Or maybe there's a harmonic section that you need to work on. You're going to work on that for 3 minutes. The first line of piece, a tricky section, a little section hand separate that you need to work on. Maybe the shaping of a melody or some really slow practice. But you're working on the kind of, juicy bits of your practice, right? You're getting beefy with your practice. And this is where journaling really helps. Because if you're journaling about what you work on each day, how the piece is progressing, what bars you need to take out, it means that when you only have 15 minutes and that 9 minute chunk to work on your repertoire, it means that you know exactly what you need to work on straight away. So you don't have to play the whole piece to then be like, oh yeah, I need to work on that section, or oh yeah, that wasn't quite ready, or that wasn't quite right. So if you're on the kind of, learning repertoire, then you want to be pulling bits out. Of course, if you're in the final stages of brushing up repertoire, then you might spend 3 minutes just playing through the piece and, feeling good about that. And that's great. But you've got 9 minutes broken up, however feels good, to really make sure that you're improving on your repertoire. Now, something that I think is really important is a mindset shift. So really, if there's one thing that you take away from this episode, if you forget all about the structure I've just talked about, and if there's one thing you take away, I would like it to be that consistency is so much more important than duration. So 15 minutes, little and often practice, 15 minutes every day is in fact really going to be more beneficial for you than 2 hours one on the Saturday. If you can fit in those little slots, 15 minutes twice a day, even better. Small steps done regularly are better than one long practice session. They're going to get you there, in fact, faster. That's what builds real progress. So, next time you find yourself thinking, oh, I only have 50 minutes, there's no point in me practicing my harp, I'd really encourage you to sit down anyway, pop a little clock on, 1 minute settle and centre, 2 minutes close work, 2 minutes stretch work, 1 minute creative work, 9 minutes of repertoire. Perfect. You're gonna have a perfect practice, and you'll feel so much more positive for having sat down and done something at the harp. Not looking for perfect practice. That's not the point of practice, is to be perfect. You're just looking for regular, thoughtful, focused practice that really moves you forward, and every minute counts. Thank you all so much for joining me for my tip this week. And next week we are going to be joined by the wonderful professional harpist Eleanor Dunstan. Now, this is a really special guest that we have for me because Eleanor studied with me during her master's studies at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and she was such a wonderful student. I have to say, I really miss having Eleanor part of the harp department. She had a really special place there. But it's great to see her going on and developing her professional career and really just shining bright in so many different exciting projects. And she's going to be telling us all about those next week, so do tune in. Now, as ever, if you enjoy this podcast, then please do like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment. It really is great to hear from you, and it helps us grow and reach more harpists. I'll see you all next week with Eleanor.